Has a British Prime Minister ever faced this level of backlash just months into office? Keir Starmer is now being confronted everywhere he goes. Schools, hospitals, even Labour strongholds. Protests are escalating daily, and his response? Run and hide. In this video, I'll break down exactly why 34% of Brits are already disillusioned with Starmer's leadership, the policies fueling public outrage, and why even Labour MPs are speaking out against him. The question isn't if there will be a leadership challenge, it's when. 99% of viewers watch without subscribing. If you enjoy our content, subscribe and turn on notifications. It helps us grow and keeps you updated. Thank you. Remember when Keir Starmer stood before the nation, promising to be a different kind of leader? A man of the people who would actually listen to ordinary Britons? That illusion didn't even last 100 days. The transformation from a man of the people to a man above the people might be the fastest political shift we've ever seen. During his campaign, Starmer constantly spoke about restoring trust in politics. "I will be accessible," he pledged. "My government will be transparent." He rolled up his sleeves in market squares, looking people in the eye. But the moment he stepped through the door at number 10, everything changed. His promise of dialogue vanished instantly. Instead, policies were imposed without consultation, decrees handed down with no public input. The winter fuel payment cuts are a perfect example. Rachel Reeves announced that millions of pensioners would lose their heating support. When elderly groups and charities sought engagement, they were completely ignored. This authoritarian approach was never part of his campaign image, and his approval ratings show the damage. Just 2 months in, Starmer's net approval plummeted to -25. A faster decline than Boris Johnson experienced in 6 months. Even Liz Truss maintained public support longer. His pledge to protect the most vulnerable has already collapsed. His budget disproportionately impacts pensioners, disabled people, and rural communities. He promised economic stability, but triggered market panic. His commitment to political dignity has morphed into a question-dodging worthy of a championship limbo dancer. His communication strategy tells a story. Campaign Starmer was about open dialogue and straight talk. Prime Minister Starmer delivers staged press events where journalists get one question each. No follow-ups allowed. The physical transformation is just as revealing. The man of the people who walked through crowds now hides behind a wall of security. In Manchester, elderly citizens trying to discuss winter fuel payment cuts were physically blocked as his security team rushed him into a car. Even at the Labour conference, the very members who campaigned for him were kept at a distance. No unscripted moments, no real interaction. His avoidance tactics hit a breaking point when farmers decided they wouldn't be ignored. The inheritance tax changes, quickly nicknamed the tractor tax, have triggered one of the most significant rural uprisings in modern British history. British farmers, usually quiet and hard-working, abandoned their fields to drive tractors at crawling speeds into Westminster. London streets were filled with agricultural vehicles, hay bales, and signs reading, "No farms, no food, no future." Starmer, the farmer harmer, is now a rallying cry. The government claims only 500 farms will be affected. The Country Land Association, however, estimates up to 70,000 could be at risk. The protests have evolved from a single demonstration into direct action, disrupting supermarket supply chains. Farmers aren't backing down. Starmer's response? More avoidance. At one event, he slipped out through a service exit. When rural leaders requested a meeting, he was unavailable, only for them to see him at a private dinner with business executives that same evening. Another group facing devastating cuts? Disability advocates. Proposed changes to personal independence payments, PIP, have sparked national outrage. Sarah, a disability advocate from Manchester, told reporters, "I rely on PIP to live independently. Without it, I'll be trapped in my home." Starmer promised to protect people like me, but now he won't even look us in the eye. The government argues that benefit spending is unsustainable. Health Secretary Wes Streeting went further, claiming an overdiagnosis of mental health conditions, sparking outrage among disability groups. Activists have repeatedly tried to confront Starmer. Footage shows security escorting them away, while Starmer himself has mastered the quick exit. In one instance, wheelchair users positioned themselves near a venue exit, hoping to speak to him. Instead, Starmer's security diverted him through another door. The internal Labour rebellion is growing. Around 80 MPs are prepared to vote against the PIP cuts, a major challenge to Starmer's authority. But if you thought Starmer's treatment of disability advocates was bad, his NHS restructuring bombshell takes avoidance to another level. Imagine turning up to work only to discover your entire organization has been abolished through a press conference, not official communication. That's what happened to 13,000 NHS England employees when Starmer announced its complete restructuring without consulting healthcare professionals. The backlash was immediate. NHS workers, many of whom voted Labour, now feel betrayed. Unions have mobilized protests. Starmer's response? Evading NHS staff at hospital visits, using private entrances to avoid unscripted encounters. His leadership style is clear. Decree, not dialogue. This pattern extends beyond policies. It's reflected in his personal behavior. The man who campaigned on climate action now favors private jets for domestic travel, despite Britain's excellent rail network. His environmental principles are abandoned the moment public accountability becomes inconvenient. Political commentator Charlie D. put it bluntly, Starmer is disconnected from the public and from his own MPs. When 80 of your own parliamentarians prepare to defy you, you have a serious problem. Labour MPs describe upcoming sessions as the worst week of Parliament. Starmer's dictatorial approach is fracturing his party. The National Farmers Union warns that the government is hacking away at the bones of British agriculture. Traditional Labour voters feel betrayed. Historical parallels are ominous. Theresa May, John Major, both leaders lost control of their parties before their premierships collapse. Starmer may face a similar fate. If internal rebellions continue, his authority will crumble. Once a leader is forced into policy U-turns, dissent grows, not diminishes. Farmers, disability advocates, environmentalists, NHS workers, even his own MPs, are uniting against him. Starmer might dodge protesters with private jets, but he can't escape the reality of his collapsing support. Britain deserves a leader who faces criticism head-on, not one who treats the public as an inconvenience. The reckoning is coming. The only question is, how much longer can Starmer run before there's nowhere left to hide?